Welcome to It's Been How Long? The podcast about Cherry Hill High School East students from the late 1970s and early 80s. This is Kara Siegel. I'd like to welcome in Sharon Lindan Mayl to the It's Been How Long podcast studio. Good morning, Sharon. How are you?
Good morning, Kara. Nice to see you.
Thanks for agreeing to be on the podcast today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for doing it. I know everyone's been saying this, but
Yeah.
it's been really a lot of fun to get these blasts from the past and just sort of virtually connect with people that we haven't seen for a while. So thank you so much.
Oh, so welcome. It's been a lot of fun. It really has. So here we are, almost 44 years post-graduation. So what are you up to these days?
What am I up to? Well, I live outside Washington, D.C. in Potomac, Maryland.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah,
Okay.
with my husband. And we have two kids who have flown the coop and are, thank God, independent and happy and healthy, functional adults. And I am a lawyer.
Oh, very good. Very good. How do you stay busy enjoying your
And
time?
I am always busy. I feel like this is like a great break for me to just be sitting in my dining room because it had the nicest backdrop. Um, I do a lot of things. I still work full time,
Okay.
and I. It's funny. I don't think I have a lot of hobbies, but I'm a kind of a fanatic exerciser,
Hmm.
and I like to garden and read and cook and bake and see my friends. And I feel like I'm always doing something. It's kind of a joke in my family that I don't know how to sit still. But yeah, no, very, very, very busy.
What did you enjoy doing back in high school?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that. Believe it or not, I actually started out as a gymnast. I don't know if people realize that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my freshman year, I was on the gymnastic team. I was not very good. I love to be fit, but I'm not particularly like great at those like team sports and that kind of stuff. Um, but I did that my first year, and then I danced.
Oh,
I was
okay.
part of pace setters and starting around sophomore year after I met Robin Garland there, I started getting more involved in student government, and I studied a lot. I admit I studied a lot in high school.
Oh, good. That's great. Did you have a job back in high school?
Yeah, a little bit. I had those typical teen jobs. I don't know if you guys remember. I worked at Lou's Shoe Bazaar for a while
Oh,
on the
wow. Oh my
70s.
gosh. Okay.
The
All right.
beginning of my shoe fetish. Yeah, and I worked in some mall store. I could not tell you the name of it that sold, hip hugger jeans and bell bottom jeans with the Rolling Stone button. You kind of
Oh,
remember those
wow.
jeans? You remember those jeans? They have like a.
Yeah.
It wasn't really the Rolling Stones button, and I'm sure they could get sued for copyright now. But
There's the lawyer. There's the lawyer.
there's a lawyer. Yeah, I worked at a mall store and I babysat and
Oh, yeah.
things like that when I was at least early on in my
Yeah.
high school career.
Yeah. So, what did you do after graduation?
So after graduation, I went to Cornell University with a
Okay.
few other Cherry Hill East people,
Joy.
although Joy
Joy.
was there. Yes, I actually ran into Joy. We actually ended up having mutual friends, and I ran into her at a New York bar mitzvah. And
Oh,
she's doing great. She'd be an interesting person for you to interview
yeah.
because she's.
I think I have her set up for next week as well.
Oh yeah, with
Yeah.
Joy. So I did that for 4 years, where I sort of floundered around trying to figure out, what major I wanted to be. I was really a math science student,
Oh,
which is funny that I'm a lawyer now. That was really my strength. Um, and I started out as a biology major and then kind of jumped around a little bit with math and toyed with engineering, all of my aptitudes when I was in high school, where you should be an engineer. But I ended up as a psychology major, actually, mostly because a lot of the courses that I took transferred because I took like neurobiology and behavior, and I could get psych credits for that. Because by the end of my sophomore year, I was kind of panicking about what I could fulfill in the remaining 4 years, because that's how many years I got. My
yeah.
parents gave you get, there was none of this like do it in 4 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
At least I think that was less common in our generation. But yeah, so I ended up being a psychology major. And then at the end of my senior year, my parents who were probably a little disappointed I wasn't an engineer which was a very practical major. I took the LSAT and happened to do super well in it and ended up going to law school because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. But I always thought maybe I would. Well, first of all, I did think about going into politics, and
Oh,
a law degree was, well, I was actually president of my class at Cornell,
oh,
um, or senior year anyway. And I thought about maybe I might want to do something in policy of some sort. I don't actually think I have the temperament to run for office. Clearly, that ship has sailed. But I did think that I wanted to do some kind of health policy, and
yeah,
so
okay.
I went to law school and thought maybe I would use that degree in that way.
Where'd you go to law school?
I went to Harvard.
Okay. All
I
right.
went to Harvard, and I thought about getting a dual public policy degree. And then I graduated from law school, not not really knowing what I was going to do. And back in those days, in the 80s, it was 87, it was, the economy was booming, and it was just super easy to get a job. I could have worked anywhere. So I decided to move to Washington because that was at least a little bit closer to like a policy environment.
Hmm.
A lot of my friends went to New York, where it's centered around finance, and that really still has not that much interest to me. So I moved to Washington thinking I would sort of pay off some student debts, and I was a litigator
Oh,
at a
okay.
big, and somewhere around 3.5 years being an associate at a big firm, I realized that I just hated what I was doing. I didn't feel a
Hmm.
passion for it, and I really needed to um, sort of step out of expectations. And this is sort of my line that I talk to a lot of young people about, is that you sort of are on this track. You feel like you're on. And I always say, since I've gotten the highest reading group in, you know, first grade, and then it was just, you just kept doing what was expected of you. And all of a sudden I found myself being a lawyer at a big firm doing securities litigation and thinking, wait a minute, how did I get here? And just left and went to go work for a consumer advocacy group that did food
Oh.
issues, called
Did
Center
food what?
Food Food Policy
Food
Issues,
policy.
which was
Oh, okay.
a little bit closer to things that I was interested in: nutrition and food safety. And I was the assistant legal director at Center for Science in the Public Interest. And then through that, I met a lot of people at the Food and Drug Administration, where I ended up pivoting over, and I worked as a senior advisor to the commissioner in the commissioner's office at FDA for almost all of my career.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and I retired from the federal government in 2000. I'm going to get this wrong. 22.
Okay.
Took a summer off where I did not sit around and do nothing. I found things to do, and now I'm in private practice
Oh,
at
wow.
a large firm in Washington D.C. as a food lawyer, food regulatory lawyer.
That is really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I do. I work in the areas, food, beverage, dietary supplements, and ironically, cannabis. I'm a
Oh,
cannabis as well. So when I was at FDA, I co-chaired the Cannabis Products Committee, from a food perspective, because we're starting to see a lot of those substances start appearing in the food supply. And I was leading, one of the leads for that effort at FDA, even though most of my career was in food safety and food and importation and things like that. So it's been crazy. It's kind of funny. I'm sure my kids think it's hilarious that I am a cannabis lawyer, but mostly I'm a foods lawyer: foods, beverages, dietary supplements.
and so can we trace this back to spending time in Sea Wing when you were in
No,
school?
not at all. I was such a straight arrow in high school. That's why it's so funny, and I'm still pretty much a straight arrow. So um, it is kind of funny. And in sort of timely, I was just asked to speak on that subject at South by Southwest, which is a
Oh,
big
yeah.
music
Yeah.
festival in Austin,
Austin.
Texas. So
Yeah.
going there, I'm now like the coolest person, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
talk
Totally.
about cannabis at one of the coolest events, but no, I'm really not that cool at all.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. So
Yeah.
many things that we may our kids may shun us for, but here you're the cool mom.
Yeah, no, I'm really not. I'm sure you could ask my kids that they would not think I was the cool mom. But it is a really interesting area and one that's evolving and one that has a lot of legal implications to
Oh
it. So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's in all the time. So yeah, probably
Very
that's
cool.
the thing people are going to remember from this
Yeah,
interview, and I hope it's not. I spent most of my career doing helping keep the food supply safe and
yeah,
and
yeah,
properly labeled.
yeah. But now you're doing that, but for cannabis, so that's all good.
Well, a little bit, yeah, a little
So
bit.
was there a class or a teacher at East that influenced you beyond? And I just joked about Sea Wing, but I
Oh
imagine.
no, no, because really all of my aptitude was in math and science, and I
Yeah.
really thought I was going to be like a genetic researcher.
Oh,
That's really where I was thinking. That's why I started out as a
yeah,
biology major, really
yeah.
interested in genetics. And my husband, who is an engineer, laughs because in college I used to take like calculus to bring my cum up. I used to take engineering calculus and do very well at it
Yeah.
because I kind of like problem solving and
Hmm.
getting to answers that there's actually an answer for, which
Right.
has no connection to being a lawyer at all. So it's kind of funny. So I did love all my math and science classes, and I was really intimidated by all of the social studies and English classes, and always felt like I was playing catch up. But I will say that one of the teachers, and I've not heard her name mentioned yet because I'm not sure how popular she was, but there was my sophomore, I think it was sophomore year, I had Mrs. Carpenter for
Yeah.
an English teacher. And I credit that woman to this day in my ability to write, because I don't know if you had her, but she used to
I
make you
did we have
take a
to
sentence and like
diagram the sentence? Didn't you have to
diagram sentences.
diagramming sentences? So when I
Not
had,
only that, but you one sentence and she would make you rewrite it in the same sentence using like moving around clauses, and so you weren't always starting with subject,
yeah,
verb. And it's funny that I remember that because I very much remember thinking like, wow, I didn't think about it at the time, but now that I have kids that have gone through the public school system where they don't really teach grammar anymore,
yeah.
I don't know where they learn it, but it was really drilled down to us. So
Oh
I think,
yeah.
yeah, so that was one teacher. I mean, there were a lot, I think. Again, I didn't end up in the math science track, but I also think that Mr. Lyons, who was our assistant vice principal, had an enormous impact on my high school career. He was one of those educators that you just wish everybody were. He just cared so much about his students, and really sort of, I think, brought a lot out of me that
Mhm.
I didn't know that I had. And I really credit him for
Yeah.
that too. So, yeah, we
Yeah.
were lucky. We had really good teachers. And
Yeah. Robin Garland Bear speaks very highly, and I've been trying to get him to agree to be on the podcast. So still working on that. Um, that's great. So did you have a high school sweetheart?
I didn't. I think I was kind of a late bloomer in that regard. No, I had crushes,
Yeah.
but and a few dates here and there, if that's what you'd call them back then. But no, I didn't.
Yeah. So how did you meet your husband?
I met my husband after law school, after I was in DC. And it was really interesting for me to hear some of your interviews of people and their connections to Judaism, and youth groups, because my kids
Yeah.
did that. I'm Jewish also, but I was not at all connected, and my parents were not very observant in any way. But when I got to high school and I'm sorry, when I got to college and law school, I met a lot of people who sort of started bringing that out of me, and I became very interested. I started taking adult education courses, and I like to say I met my husband in Hebrew school,
Ah,
because I was taking an adult Hebrew class. I never learned how to learn Hebrew. And the class started out with about 15 people. And by the end of it, there were three of us. And one was a friend of mine, and she was already married. So it was, there were only slim pickings, I guess. And we ended up meeting. He was actually a DC firefighter
ah,
at the time, rare Jewish firefighter in the DC fire department. And we ended up meeting and hitting it off. And he's also an engineer, but and sort of, he was one of those people that took a long time to get through college, but he's now a full-time engineer. But he ended up being a captain downtown in the
mm,
DC fire department. But we met in Hebrew school. That's, yeah,
that's
just a
that's a
little bit
great
later.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Um, so you still have friends from East that you're in touch with?
I do. I do. In fact, fairly recently, I had Robin Garland Bear over with Meg Phillips for lunch. She kind of reconnected us in the way that Robin has that gift of doing.
Yes.
Um, and so I had them over for lunch, and it was just like we were just picking up from high school. It was really fun. I also tend to once in a while keep in touch with Eric Muller and
Yeah.
Steve Kanaski, just reconnections. This hasn't been a constant thing.
You're talking
And
about a bio major who went on to law, right? Steve Kanoski told his
yeah, there's
story.
another,
Yeah.
and we're in the same realm because he's also a food and drug lawyer.
Yeah.
He's more on the medical product side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we connect professionally once in a while on that. And Patty Elkis,
Oh, wow.
who
Okay.
was a very dear friend of mine. I think I want to say since middle school, but now I'm trying to remember how far back we go. We haven't been as much in touch lately. She's still in the Philly area, so I do, at least on holidays, we try to reconnect. And another person, Mara Klorman. I don't know if you knew her in high school, but Mara and I met the summer before kindergarten
Oh,
at
wow.
the
Is that her
Willowdale
maiden
Swim Club.
name or is it
No, that's
Claire?
her maiden name,
Okay.
Clorman,
Claire.
Clurman.
Yeah.
She and I met and became fast friends, when we were 5, going into kindergarten, and remained friends throughout. Our parents were friends, and she actually lives in Israel now.
Oh,
And
wow.
I still am very much in touch with her. She actually just became a grandmother.
Yeah.
And she's probably, I don't want to say my oldest friend.
Yeah.
She'll always remind me that I'm 11 days older than she is, but she's my longest friend, maybe,
Right.
in life. And I'm trying to think who else. Ellen Lazarus, do you remember
Mhm.
Ellen?
Yeah.
She ended up working at the Food and Drug Administration
Oh,
also,
wow.
from a science perspective in our Center for Biologics. And we actually reconnected, and I had dinner with her and Eric once when he was in town, and reconnected that. I think she's retired now.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't keep in touch with too many people on a
Hmm.
constant basis, but it has been so wonderful to sort of reconnect with them virtually,
Yeah.
and maybe one-sidedly in these podcasts. And it reminds me of all the people that had such, that I was friends with and had influence over my life, even though I may not have thought about it so much at the time.
Yeah. Anybody you lost touch with that you were tight with back in high school?
Gosh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Funny, we were chatting before you started recording, and I started looking through the yearbook and realizing all the people that I really had lost touch with. Like, I remember Alexis Brownstein. I remember we
Yeah.
were friends. I think we were friends even in elementary school. And of course, Patty and I sort of keep in touch, but I do feel like I've lost touch with her a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd love to get together with her next time I happen to be in Philly, which I don't get back much anymore. But yeah, no, lots of people that are just bringing smiles to my faces when I see them on your
Yeah.
podcasts, and so many of them that I'm seeing, they just, to me, look and sound exactly the same as
Yeah.
I remember them, which is really, including yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I would recognize you anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I hope we'll have a reunion, because it would be really fun to
Yeah.
see people in person. And we've all grown in so many interesting ways, I think, since high school, because we just do. High school is high school, and it has
Yeah.
its ups and its downs and its clicks and its whatevers. But it's so many years later, when all of that fades away, and you just see how people what they've done with their lives, and how interesting they've become, and how hopefully successful or happy. So however you measure success, I don't really
Right.
mean that in a
Yeah.
happiness factor. Also, it
Right.
would be really nice to
See people in
do that.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
And I think Alan Feldman's definitely leading the charge there. And so yeah, I'm excited for that as well. I think it's going to be a blast. So do you have a standout memory or, experience that you think about?
I don't
Could be
know if
with
I have a standout memory, but I will say that when you talk about influences, I just have to talk about Robin a little bit, because she's just one of those people that had also a huge influence in my life in high school, and really changed my path a little bit. Not that I was going down a bad path, but really saw things in me that I didn't quite see in myself at the time, and got me more involved in student government. We ended up co-chairing the proms together, which
Yeah, she told me that. Yeah.
ended up being a blast, and sort of bringing me into that student government fold, which must have had a huge influence, because I think I sort of emerged from that as a slightly a different person. And I've had the chance to sort of talk about that with her lately, and thank her for that, because I think that she really had a big impact in my life. So I don't know if it was a standout moment, but certainly a standout person. I think we can all say that about Rob. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how we're all hoping, keeping her in our thoughts and our prayers, because she is really inspirational in the way that she is approaching what she's going through right now. And I think we could all be, I think aspirational is the word to use about Robin, because she was always such a kind and giving and thoughtful person. And I just hope we're all thinking about her. So so I don't know that was necessarily a standout. But I do have a couple of memories that, again, I had to almost remind myself looking through the book. I was looking at the junior miss. I was actually a finalist in the junior miss. I really didn't have a talent, but I don't know how I ended up with that crew, because they were all so talented and beautiful. But I remember there was a picture in probably, I don't remember if it was a Cherry Hill paper or some kind of paper that I found tucked away in my yearbook. That's kind of embarrassing, actually, when I think about it. And I went to Girls State. Were you at Girls State?
I did not. No,
you didn't go. And I remember that maybe sort of got in my mind, government and policy issues, because that was interesting. I think there were a lot of memories that maybe I had forgotten about until they were jogged by our lovely Western themed yearbook.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that you wish classmates knew about you back then or now?
I wish there were things I knew about me.
Yeah.
I know one of the questions that you ask people is, what advice would you have given you? And I think that I didn't maybe quite reach my full self in high school, and sort of grew. I'm sure many of us haven't, but sort of grew more through college and law school. I wish I wish I could have told myself back then to just have more faith and believe in yourself and believe in your abilities. But no, I don't know that there's anything that was great, too much of a secret back then that I wish people had known. But I think that I was a little bit more introverted. It's not the right word, but maybe sort of that lack of confidence that emerges as we sort of grow up, I guess. Yeah.
What I think is funny is that, I would have said, and again, I think we had classes together, certainly knew each other. But I would have thought, oh my gosh, you're involved in student government, that group has confidence. You, Meg, Robin, that whole crew, Greg Deegan was in there, all these folks. And to look, and say, oh yeah, those are the confident kids in our class, or what have you. But I think the thing that's coming out of this is we were all so freaking insecure, and just constantly self-doubting. So it's
I think I took myself very seriously in high school. I wish again, I'm jumping ahead probably in your question list, but I think I would have given the advice to not take myself so seriously. I think I just stressed out about different things. And I think that's one of the things that my husband brought out in me, because he's sort of the opposite. He took his time getting through college, and he just had a different attitude to life. And I think, had I married someone sort of that was as neurotic as I was, I would have been a mess. But it's kind of nice to have that balance with your spouse and grow in that way. But I wish that I had been a little bit lighter in high school. And I wish I hadn't. I mean, I did study super hard. I guess that's how I got into Cornell and Harvard. But I wish I had just taken everything a little less
Seriously.
seriously.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So have you been back in the building at all?
I haven't. I think it would be really fun. At some point I must have been since high school because I remember. Do you remember the senior like highlight? They used to have like a boy and a girl like in the
Mhm.
front, and would highlight them. And I remember I had that one time, and at one point they had moved all the older ones to one of the wings. I
Yeah.
don't know, C wing,
Like the
B wing.
administrative wing or
Yeah,
something?
ours are probably like in the basement or destroyed by now because it's been so long. But it would be really interesting. I have such memories of it, and you joke about B wing and C wing. The areas that when I was in high school, they decided there were certain bathrooms and wings that you just didn't really want to hang out in too much. And it would be really fun to go back now. And by the way, I find it really interesting and outrageous. I mean, many of us that are on this now have kids. Like the administration just allowed these kids to just hang out like at the end of the wing and smoke pot and cigarettes. There was never anybody that I don't think there was ever anyone that really stopped them. It was just kind of an accepted practice that in certain bathrooms that's what would happen, and in certain areas. And it's kind of funny now because I don't. Maybe that still happens, but I think it's busted up a little bit more now. At least they make a pretense to try to
Well,
bust it up these days.
I think that I mean, teachers smoked, students smoked, you had a smoking area, you were allowed to smoke. So now I think that most of these buildings are smoke free. So that couldn't go on. So yeah,
Was it? It was allowed. I guess was that like a designated smoking area?
I think so. I don't think it was not allowed. I always thought that was just, I mean, because
Yeah.
yeah, I always thought, I assumed it was okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, nobody. It was never. No one was hurting anyone, so I
Yeah,
guess nobody
no,
cared
yeah,
that much about
it's
it now.
funny.
But it's kind of funny when you think back on that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we're back in 1980 and you're looking out, here 40 plus years. Is this where you saw yourself?
Probably not because I thought I'd be more. Sort of. I don't know that I would have thought of this as my career track, but not so crazy. I mean, I didn't have any great dreams of doing anything super crazy. I figured I'd end up married with kids, somewhere in near a metropolitan area, doing something professional, doing something I loved. So I think I'd like to think I ended up with it all.
Yeah.
But there's always things you could get that you would do differently or better. But
Did you have a dream job?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
No, because I couldn't envision that I was going to end up being a lawyer. Honestly, it was a default, really. It was just, I was a senior in college. I didn't really know what to do. My parents, were like, what are you going to do with a psychology degree? And I don't know. Yeah, I think I just
Worked
sort
out
of
for
felt
you.
like it worked out for me. Yeah, I think I try to do that in life. Life is going to throw you curveballs. You gotta figure out. You just have to take the path that is gonna. You got to make the best of it, I guess.
Yes.
Not
Yeah,
that it's
sure.
not that this is a terrible thing to do. I've loved my career. I've had a really
Oh, that's
wonderful.
great.
I've gotten to do some really exciting things, travel to interesting places. So it's been great for me.
Cool. So we reached our fast and furious finish.
Oh
So
no,
yeah.
you didn't ask me about travel.
Oh, sorry. That actually was a good segue to travel. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So tell me, so where have you had the opportunity to travel?
Well, professionally, I've been very fortunate because I've been part of U.S. delegations that have traveled to some really interesting places: Chile, Tokyo, lots of places in Europe, lots of places in the United States, of course, as well. But given I was leading many policy efforts at the agency and often had to interact with other industry in other countries and other governments, and so that was always a really fun thing to do. And then personally, I actually love to travel, although
Oh,
don't like to fly, which is difficult for me. But I just buck it up and I get on a plane. But I've been trying to think if Israel counts as Africa, that I've been to most continents. Our daughter studied in Australia,
oh,
so I
cool.
visited her for a couple of weeks. I've been to Israel. I've been to, like I said, I've been to Chile and Costa Rica and Mexico and Venezuela
Do you have a
and
favorite place
all
that
over.
you,
Um,
if you could
do
go
I have a
back
favorite?
or recommend to somebody, hey, you really, if you get one opportunity, go here? And that's a tough
That
question, but
that would be tough. We were in Iceland a couple years ago, and I
oh,
loved that. I'm actually going back to Italy, and I love Italy. I'd love to go to New Zealand. I haven't been there yet, although I've been to Australia. I'd love to do that. No, I would say if you have the opportunity to travel, whether it's to, you know, another state or someplace else, I would say do it. We're also big national parks people. Maybe that's something
mm,
people don't know about me. Big hiker, love to be kayak, do outdoorsy stuff. I can thank my husband for that, because I think my parents' idea of being outdoors was going to a natural history museum. But so I have an app, and I check off the national parks.
oh,
I
cool.
feel like I've been to so many, but I think I've only been to about 30% of them.
That's really neat. That's great.
Really fun.
That's great. Okay, so we've reached our Fast and Furious finish, which is again usually neither fast nor furious. Did you have a favorite TV show or movie or book from back in high school?
Oh my gosh. I don't think so. I mean, I know everyone's saying Saturday Night Live, but it really was great. No, I
Yeah,
don't know if I had any. I wasn't a huge reader in high school.
yeah.
So yeah, and movies, I've lost track of what decade all of my favorite movies are, so
You
I'm
know,
gonna pass on that one.
well, so funny. So I did look this up at, I kept asking the question. I'm like, I don't know how to answer that. So I started, so in 1979, like the top movies were Superman. It might have been the first one, could have been the third one, who knows? Amityville Horror, Rocky 2, um, Star Trek the Motion Picture. I mean, this was all yeah, Apocalypse Now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I
None of
thought that was funny.
those. None
And
of those.
TV shows that were at the top was like 60 Minutes was number one, and Three's Company was number two. I mean, so I thought that was kind of funny.
That is funny. Yeah, that's probably why I didn't have one.
Yeah. But SNL, the one that I think a lot of
Yeah.
us did watch. Did you have a favorite musical group or artist or genre?
Yeah, I was really into the sort of the singer-songwriters. Like I
Hmm.
said, I was kind of serious, I think, in high school. Love Jackson Brown,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
James Taylor, but also, we're from Jersey, so we all love Bruce, so we
Yeah.
gotta give him a shout out. But no, that was a little bit more my genre, the singer-songwriter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Did you have a favorite place to eat or hang out with friends in high school?
No, Robin recently reminded me that we went to Papa Gallo's a lot
Okay.
to get ice cream. We were ice cream. That's my favorite food group, ice cream. And yes, we went to Papa Gallo's a lot, but I also remember going to like Kaminsky's and Coastline with our
Yeah.
fake IDs to get in and hang out there. So those are some memories too.
Did you ever run across teachers there when you were there with your fake ID?
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
I don't think any like self-respecting teacher would have gone to those places. They
Well,
were
that would have
kind of
been,
diving, like known to be high
I
school
think that would have
teachers
been the
who hang out.
point.
Yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, actually, there is a creep factor there, but it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I wouldn't. If I were a teacher, I wouldn't. Those are the last people I want to see in my free time. No
Yeah.
offense to us, but
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go.
Oh my God.
You remember that
Yeah.
person?
Yeah, that was a terrible picture.
Um, and so your quote, remember yesterday, dream about tomorrow, but live for today. That's a good
Yeah,
quote.
I was like the Hallmark girl, that was like, I probably got that off a Hallmark card. The whole thing is a little embarrassing for me. It's again, I was looking through the yearbook. There were other pictures I liked a lot better, including the ranking scholars picture and a few others there that I thought were much better. Yeah, I probably should have retaken that one, but yeah, lost. Didn't do it.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of thoroughly covered the Western yearbook motif. And so my next question, I've switched this up, is what language did you take in high school, and have you found it useful?
I took Spanish and then ended up taking, I think, a semester of it in college. It's one of my regrets that I didn't keep it up, because I have a hard time communicating with friends of mine that speak Spanish, neighbors of mine that speak Spanish. I've really lost a lot of it, and I would love to that's one of the things I would love to do in my retirement is to get that language back. But you have to, if I ever retire, but you'd have to really speak it
Yeah.
pretty regularly. And I've, it's been how long? It's been a
Yeah.
lot of years. Since I've spoken Spanish, and I've kind of lost that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
had like 5.5 years of it because I
Oh,
started
well.
in middle school, I
Okay.
think.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. All right. So lastly, anyone you want to tell something to out there, everyone, parting shot as it were?
No, just if anyone's in DC, I'd love to reconnect. I'd love to reconnect even virtually with people. It would be really fun to see how they're doing. So, look me up. I'm not really a social media person, but I do LinkedIn, so you could do that, or I'm sure you could find ways to find me. So I'd love to reconnect with folks from high school if they see this and say, "Wow, it'd be great to talk to her again." So that's what I would say, and just really enjoy seeing where everyone's ended up and where their life has taken them. So I really appreciate everything that you've been doing to do that, Kara.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And hopefully we'll keep getting volunteers to sit in the studio and do just that. So, well, Sharon, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been great. It's been great catching up, and yeah, keep our cannabis safe, you know?
Do my best. Really fun. Really great to see you.
Good to see you.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much. All right. Have a
Bye.
great day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for joining me on It's Been How Long? The podcast about Cherry Hill High School East students from the late 1970s and the early 80s. A shout out to my cousin Brad Corbett, whose podcast We Weren't Friends in High School inspired me to do this podcast and whose advice and encouragement have been so helpful. Thanks also to my husband, Randy Cockdale, who read all the fine print on the podcast hosting website so I wouldn't have to. And thanks to Jeff Lyons, content consultant and guinea pig, and to Deborah Smead, also content consultant. And thank you to all our classmates who are listening in. See you next week.